Unless we have a whole lot of money, filling a garden with plants purchased from the garden center or nurseries is just way too expensive to fill a garden. I mean, you can have a tiny garden and fill it with plants that you've purchased, but if you have a garden that is a standard size or even large like mine is, filling it with plants that you have to purchase ready-made in pots is just not viable. At least it's not for me. And so that is why so many gardeners use what they have, plants that are clump forming or that will propagate from cuttings, and then increase their plant supply that way. We're now at the end of summer. It's August going into September, and this is one of the times of year that you can start increasing your plant supply by cuttings and division. Cuttings, I think a lot of people are really aware of. You take a plant cutting, you put it into water, or you put it into a potting mix that's free draining, and it forms roots. And I have a couple of videos already here on Lovely Greens showing how to do that. But another way to propagate plants is through division. The most common time of the year to divide plants, so clump forming plants like mint and chives and other types, even ornamentals like hostas, most people do that in early spring as the plant is starting to come back to life and new shoots are forming and it recovers fairly quickly. But we can do it for a lot of plants now at the end of summer. And doing it now means that they have a little bit of time to establish and to grow on before winter. And then next year you can pot them back up into other pots or put them out in the garden, whatever you would like. Now, this doesn't work for all plants, but if your plant is clump forming, like this mint, it means that those roots or those clumps, if you cut them up or not, will continue to spread. And flowers can be divided too, so monarda, so bee balm and echinacea, you can divide those out and make endless plants basically over the years. I have divided up already a chocolate mint, a chocolate peppermint, and it was a bit tough getting it out of the pots, but I used my hori hori knife, which is my new favorite garden tool, and I have now 4 clumps that I'm going to pot up and grow on. And that means that it will stimulate new growth, it will revive the plant, which is looking a little bit tired, and it had definitely outgrown that pot. And then next year at our annual seed swap, I can share the plants. And I have quite a few different mints, including this ginger mint. And so I'd like to divide them, increase my plant supply, and share them on. If you are in the same situation as me, you want to increase your plants, you want to fill your garden, you want more plants for pots, dividing your plants now into September is a great way to do it. And I'm going to show you how to do it with this ginger mint in just a second. But you can use this method or very, very similar method for a lot of different culinary herbs. So you can use it for anything in the mint family, and that includes all the peppermints and apple mints, banana mints, also lemon balm. You can use this for chives. You can use it for French tarragon, lovage, oregano, loads of different herbs. And then when you get into the clump forming flowers, you can use the same method for them as well. The general rule that a lot of gardeners use is that if your plant flowers in spring, then you would divide that clump in summer, so July, August time. And if your plants, like the mint family, flowers in summer, then you do that either in very early spring or very early autumn. So right now is a kind of a good time to divide most things. Now, there are certain plants that I would not be dividing right now. And one of them is my chive. I cut down the spent green foliage and it has this lush new regrowth. So if I divide it right now, I could destroy a lot of this foliage and it's starting to flower again. So I will leave this chive for early spring to divide, and it does need it because it has outgrown this pot. And there are other plants as well. So if you have lots of green leaves on it, you're still harvesting from it. If you notice that it's flowering, don't divide it. Just wait until a little bit later or wait until the next year, so early spring. Having the foliage on the plant can help to lever it out. And this is pretty loose, but you can also use a hori-hori knife and you can put it into the pot and slice it up that way. And mint is very hardy, so you can slice right through it, no problem. But I think that this ginger mint will come out of the pot a lot easier because of the shape of the pot. It's more of a bell shape. So let's see if I can pull it out. I watered these yesterday so that they're not really sloppy. It's starting to come out. You can tell that it's really outgrown this pot though because it's stuck in there. All right. You can see this winding root system that's going round and round and round. We can work this a little bit to kind of loosen the roots, or you can cut right through them. It just depends on how healthy your root system and what you'd like to do. But if we loosen this up, that means that there'll be more roots and more, I guess, growing power for each of the cuttings or clumps that we're dividing. I'd say that that is pretty good. The roots are loosened up a bit. And that means that there'll be a lot less wastage and I can get all of these longer pieces. If I cut carefully, I can get them into the new pots as well. When you have a clump like this out in the garden, so if you take it out of the ground, you can chop it with a sharp spade or again, a hori-hori knife. And in some cases, you can just tease the plant apart. And with mint, it definitely is worth it to use a cutting implement because the roots can be tough. I'm going to try to cut this into 4 pieces. I think that's pretty safe. And I'm just going to cut right down the middle first. Pull it apart. And then I'm going to cut it again. So you can see me teasing out those roots has really made a difference to this clump. I'm going to set these aside so I don't get them confused with the chocolate mint over here. Again, another really healthy plant. A lot of mint, so different cultivars of mint, are hybrids, which means that they don't grow true from seed. They might revert back to the parent plants. And so dividing them like this ensures that the plants that you'll get afterwards are going to be exactly the same as the original. It's basically like homemade cloning. Very, very simple. So I had 2 plants here originally, and now I have 8. The next step is potting these up as quickly as possible. You don't want the roots to dry out. I have labels that I've already written on. So these are all ginger mints over here, and I have some pots as well. These are core pots, so they are pretty eco-friendly, but you can use plastic pots or anything that you have at hand, recycled pots as well. What I have here in the middle is some peat-free compost, and it's quite fibrous, which is great because that will add to the texture. But also I have some perlite and some vermiculite, and I would say it's about 3 parts compost and 2 parts So 1 part each of the vermiculite and the perlite. And this is really just to give structure and improve drainage. And it's important to have that, especially when you are propagating plants in containers, because you don't want the potting mix to be waterlogged. When that happens, then the roots might rot and the plant might not take, and you might just have wasted your time. So improving whatever potting mix you have with a bit of grit or purchased perlite and vermiculite is always a good idea. This is the first time that I've used coir pots. It's C-O-I-R. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it correctly, but I was sent these to try out from a UK company, and I like the look of them. We'll see how they do with growing these plants. So we'll come back to that. And all I'm going to do is put a little bit of this potting mix into one, and then tuck this plant in as best as I can. Now, after firming the plant into the pot, and you can see the compost is pretty close to the lip, I've gone ahead and watered it. I've put a label in the pot so I don't forget what mint it is, and I've also trimmed down the foliage, and that's just so the plant can focus on building up the root system again and even growing some new foliage, which I'm sure it will do before the end of autumn. And that is pretty much it. I've got quite a few more plants, so clumps of plants to pot up. And then once they are all potted up, I'm going to water them all and then put them into the greenhouse, which is a really controlled area so that they can grow and be protected from the elements and from rain. But you could just leave it outside as well. They'll likely do just fine, especially anything in the mint family. Now, if you think that you have plants that you can propagate by division, why not try it out? You can increase the number of plants you have, you can expand your garden, and it's all pretty much free. If you also have a different type of culinary herb or flowering plant that you aren't quite sure that you can propagate, but think that you might be able to, let me know as a comment down below and I'll see if I can help you out. Also, you probably hear some shooting in the background. I had a comment in the last video about people being concerned about animals being shot. It's just a shooting range. It's way over there. It just echoes down into this area. Don't worry at all about that. In any case, I hope that you found this video helpful and maybe it will give you some ideas for expanding your own garden. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next week here on Lovely Greens. Bye for now.